Future Makers.
Hi, I'm Ro. I'm one of the coaches here at FutureMakers, where we design, test, and create playful learning kits called Sparks. Sparks are made to help integrate hands-on design challenges and imaginative play experiences into all classrooms and learning spaces. This video is made to help educators and learning specialists like you guide learners through a fun experience that builds confidence and sparks curiosity. Today, we'll be playing with Blendies. Blendies can help learners develop their motor skills, learn about symmetry and asymmetry, and optically mix primary colors to create secondary colors. These approaches have been tested with hundreds of learners and educators, and I'll go over all three activities step by step in this video. So get ready, and let's play. In this activity, we'll walk through all the parts that come with your Blendies Spark and how you can use them to create a Blendie that spins. This activity will be especially critical for younger learners before moving on to playing with symmetry and color mixing. Learners can follow along with their printed guides or with the card deck if you received our Blendies class pack. I have in front of me everything that comes with our Blendies kit. I have 2 stoppers, 1 dowel, a set of primary colored markers, and a board of Blendies pieces. Our dowels and stoppers can come in a variety of colors, but rest assured they will all work the same. We won't need our markers until activity 3, so we'll set those aside for now. For step 1, we'll break apart our stoppers and remove their middle squares. Next, we'll remove the pieces from our Blendies board. They're easier to remove if you twist them first. Now that we've twisted this piece, we just have to pull at each end to remove it from the Blendies board. And just continue to do this for the rest of the pieces in your board. Next, we'll remove the squares from our Blendies pieces. You might have noticed by now that our Blendies pieces come in 2 different shapes. Some have 2 lobes and others have 3. We'll refer to the 2-lobed shapes as peanuts, and we'll call the 3-lobed shapes the wings. We won't be needing the wings yet either, so we'll set those aside. For step 2, we'll take one of our stoppers and add one to our dowel. Insert your dowel into the square hole in your stopper, then slide your stopper halfway down the dowel like this. On to step 3. We'll take our 2 peanuts and slide the dowel through their center holes. Add your peanuts to the dowel in a crisscross manner so that they create this flower shape. Now, take your second stopper and add it to the dowel on top of your 2 peanuts. Push the stopper all the way down and press firmly to sandwich all of your parts tightly together. This will keep the parts from coming loose later on. For our final step in this activity, we'll practice making our Blendie spin. If your learners are working on standard desks or small tabletops, you may want to move them to the floor for this. There are 2 spinning techniques that learners can practice with. The first technique calls for holding your Blendie with your dominant hand on a flat spinning surface. Pinch the dowel with your index finger, middle finger, and thumb like this. You'll quickly flick those fingers in a clockwise motion and let go of your Blendie. This may take some practice. For learners who are still working on their fine motor skills, they can use a 2-handed technique to make their Blendie spin too. To do this, you'll need to position your Blendie on a flat spinning surface like before, and then take both hands and wrap them around the dowel like this. Now quickly move your hands in opposite directions until your Blendie breaks free and spins. This might take a few times to get right, but it will help your learners develop the skills they need to move on to the next activity. We've now completed the core build of our first activity and practiced a couple different spinning techniques. Encourage your learners to continue practicing both techniques and experiment with different spinning speeds. Afterwards, you can move them on to the next activity where we'll experiment with more ways to build Blendies. In this activity, we'll go over the concept of symmetry and how it affects the way that our Blendies spin. Your learners will need all of their Blendies components except their markers. I'll be using a few visual examples to go over symmetry, but you can follow along with your learners using the same examples in the slide deck linked below. First, let's remind ourselves of what symmetry is and isn't. Simply put, symmetry is when something is the same on both sides, like how most of us have hands and arms on both sides of our body. Take a look at these shapes. Not all of them are symmetrical. We can place a line over them to break them into equal halves. Some of them, like this heart or this star, are the same on both sides of the line. This irregular shape in the center is not the same on both sides, so it's probably not symmetrical. We can move the line around to check. Yep, it's definitely not symmetrical. Going back to this star, we can see it's symmetrical at multiple angles. That's because a star has radial symmetry. This advanced concept can be helpful to note, but we'll primarily focus on playing with bilateral symmetry. Let's use what we've learned from Activity 1 and about symmetry to create a symmetrical blendy. To start, I'll place one stopper on my dowel. And then I'll add one peanut using its side hole, and a wing on top of that using its center hole. And finally, we'll add our second stopper and press it all together. And now we have a simple and symmetrical blendy. We can check for symmetry by imagining a line down the center of our blendy. We can see that this blendy shape is the same on both sides of this line. Now try giving your symmetrical blendy a spin. Prompt your learners to observe how it spins and keep note of this for later. Let's modify our blendy and see what happens when we make it not symmetrical or asymmetrical. To do this, we'll take off our top stopper and add our second wing using one of its side holes. Add your stopper back to the top of the blendy and press it all together like before. Do you notice how adding this one extra piece in this way has now made our blendy asymmetrical? Let's imagine a line down the middle again, just to make sure. If we look at both sides of the line, we can see that the shape of our blendy on one side does not match the shape of our blendy on the other side. That means our blendy is not symmetrical. Let's move back to our spinning surfaces and see how our blendy spins. While you and your learners take the time to give your blendy a few spins, ask your learners if they notice any difference in the way it spins. Has it gotten faster or slower? Does it spin for a longer or shorter amount of time? How do they think symmetry or asymmetry helps a blendy balance while it spins? Once your learners have taken the time to spin and observe a symmetrical and asymmetrical blendy, they can continue to try new builds and test their theories. In front of me are a few examples of different blendies builds. Can you spot the symmetrical and asymmetrical ones? After you and your learners have experimented with the different ways of building blendies, they'll be ready to move on to the final activity where we'll use our markers on our blendies to optically mix colors while they spin. In this final activity, we'll go over how your blendies can be used to optically mix primary colors to create secondary colors. Your learners will need all of their blendies components for this, including their markers. As with the previous activity, I'll be using a few visual examples. You can guide your learners along with the same examples in the slide deck linked below. These are each of the 3 primary colors. We have red, yellow, and blue. Primary colors are unique because they can be mixed to make any color. Watch what happens when I overlap these circles and blend their colors together. When I blend 2 primary colors, they create secondary colors. We can see that we have 3 secondary colors: orange, green, and purple. Yellow and red together create orange, blue and yellow create green, and red and blue create purple. By now you may have noticed that each blendy comes with markers that are primary colors. Well, get excited because we're going to use those markers to add color to our blendies and make them do what they're made to do: blend. First, take just 1 marker and 1 peanut. Using your marker, fill one side of your first peanut with 1 color. After you've done that, your peanut should only be colored on one side. Set aside that first marker and that colored peanut. Now repeat the previous step, but with a separate peanut and a different color. And now that we have both peanuts colored in, we're ready to build our Blendy. At this point, we're going to repeat the Blendy we did in Activity 1. We'll start with our first stopper, and then add one of our peanuts, colored side up. Then our second peanut, also colored side up. And our second stopper. Remember to sandwich the pieces firmly together. We now have a Blendy that has two primary colors. From what we've learned, can your learners guess what might happen with the two colors they've selected? Let's see what happens with mine. It may be difficult to see on video, but the red and blue colors on my Blendy spun and mixed together to make the color purple. In real life, human eyes aren't fast enough to perfectly see our Blendies as it spins, so our brain blurs the spinning and optically mixes the colors together. Try it for yourself. Bring your learners to a suitable spinning surface and let them spin and observe the science at work. After your learners have used their Blendies to optically mix colors, they can try different shapes and spinning techniques to fully customize it. They can even try out new color combinations and patterns to see how they affect their blending. Just encourage your learners to continue keeping their colors separate while integrating them into a pattern. We want the Blendy to do all the color blending for us. The playful learning can continue for hours. What I have in front of me here is just a few of many possible explorations. Where you and your learners go is only limited by time and imagination. Once you've reached a stopping point, Blendies can return to their reclosable bags and be taken home. Thank you for watching. In case you didn't know, here at FutureMakers, we're committed to ensuring a playful and creative experience for educators and learners alike. That's why each of our Sparks is individually packed for learners to keep what they make and take it home. We believe that providing ownership of what they make helps to boost engagement, empowers them to take greater risks, and allows playful learning to continue anywhere. For your benefit, we've also created a playbook, which includes standards alignments, printables, a learner-facing slide deck, and more. Check the description below for links to all of these materials or find them on our website. Let us know what you think. Bye!
Future